What's up, everyone? I just wanted to show you how I created this palette knife portrait. So first step is the background, and for this I just squeezed out a whole bunch of acrylic paints onto a canvas and used a big thick fluffy brush to blend it all out but not mix the colors. So I did dry it in between layers. For this one I wanted to add a lot of texture, so I crinkled up a paper towel and just dabbed on some bits of color, and then decided that's going to take too long, so let's just use some stencils that Jeff made a while back. So I am just patterning on a whole bunch of stencils with a whole bunch of spray paints after my base layer dried. You don't have to do a whole bunch of this, but I did. And ultimately, in the end, I don't know if it made a difference, but I didn't have to worry about a background after I was done with the piece, so yay. But also I think that the piece itself kind of like blended into the background. So I'm using a variety of palette knives to do this, and I am mixing my acrylics with some Impasto paint to thicken it up, give it more body, and kind of make it peak in different areas so it's like thicker, especially if you're using any like thinner or like not heavy body paints like the bright pink that I just mixed. I'm having to use a lot more of the Impasto mix because the brightest color that I mixed into it was an airbrush paint, and so it really was super thin, so I had to mix a lot of the Impasto mix. There's also other stuff you can do. You can use heavy body gel mediums and texture paste. Just make sure that it's clear and kind of glossy so that the finish is what you like. I'm mostly using a very thin palette knife. I almost said trowel brush for some reason, and that is not what this is. I'm using a very thin one, and also for the bigger patches, I'm using more of a rounded tip one. I like the more flexible ones, the ones that you can kind of bend along. And for me, this being my first palette knife piece, it makes it easier to not kind of scrape off paint with my fingers or the handle of the brush when it's kind of like an offset knife, and also it's thinner, so it's malleable. I can bend it so that I'm not further scraping my finger on everything. So I started out doing kind of the dark parts first, and that's something that my husband does a lot, just to give you kind of a map for where you're adding the other colors. And I found that that really helps me a lot. I'm also mixing a lot of colors as I'm going, so if I like disappear off the camera while I'm doing this, that's what's happening. I'm just mixing a kind of a variation of the color that I'm using. This is very, it's a fun process for me, but it's almost stressful because I don't know how to paint a face at all. And so for me, using all of the colors rather than just like a skin tone kind of takes some of the stress out of kind of color matching and making the face not look like a pig, you know, that peachy flesh tone, the really pink one. And it also saves me from accidentally making kind of a dead tone for skin tone, kind of having too much like of a grayish look to it. If you've never painted a face, you probably are listening to me like that. I have no idea what you're saying. But if you ever have, it's hard. It's difficult. So, for me, eyes and hands are two of my favorite things about people when they're painted, but I'm not really good at painting either. And so this was also very rough for me, but luckily my husband, Jeff, is very good at painting those, and so he would come over and give me kind of a tidbit of information. The lip is probably my favorite part to paint. I've been painting lips for a super long time. This one kind of went off balance when I filled in that green around the far part of the lip, which I'll have to go in and correct later, but you can't really tell, so it's fine. Also, something difficult for me is painting shadows. And when you're using a thick Impasto paint, it's more difficult to me because it kind of makes things look muddy and not shadowed. And so I had to have my husband help me on that as well, but he did, and so it's fine. This is around the time where I noticed, I think, that the lip was too low on the far side. Nope, that's in a minute. Can you see my puppies in the background? Also, I think I'm watching The Office and Bob's Burgers throughout most of this piece. They always stay within eye shot of what I'm doing, and I have to go check on them because they're my babes. So as you can see now, the face is really almost done, but it's still kind of blending in with the background. So I don't know how I'm going to fix that. Probably not going to fix it. Probably just going to let it go and let that be a learning curve for the next time I do a face. But yeah, I think I'm going to add hair into the next one as well, because with Impasto you can really show the movement in hair because it's thicker, so you can have those like tendrils that kind of curve and swerve. But I didn't do it on this one, but next one I will. So when you paint with a palette knife, I learned that it's most important to not make things muddy, but a lot of impressionistic painters will mix their color on the palette. Nope, not on the palette, but on the canvas rather. And also something else, but I have forgotten. Sorry, I got lost in watching this piece come together. I wish I had left that purple under the eye instead of added all that red. So a lot of painting is, with palette knives, is directional application. So for a cheekbone, you're going to swish it up. For the lips, you want to give that kind of rounded stroke. I hope that makes sense. I have another couple of paintings like this coming up if you guys want to see it. There's my muddy shadow in that eyeball right there. But I hope you enjoyed it. I really love this piece. What do you think I should do with the background of the next one? Is it too much with the colorful background, with the colorful face foreground? Let me know in the comments. I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say. And I will see you guys in the next video. Be kind to one another because you never know what someone's going through. And always remember that we do the test so you don't have to. See you guys next time. Bye. I said bye.